Okay, hey folks, welcome to class. It's nice to have you here. My name is Margaret with Sacramento Art Classes. If you have never been to my class before, I do these free classes on the last Tuesday of every month at 6:30. It goes from 6:30 to 8, and so tonight we're doing an abstract watercolor, abstract floral watercolor. It's actually a mixed media because we're going to use some pens on this as well. But the format for the class is like this. I'll talk to you for a minute and explain the supplies and what we're going to do, and if you have a question you can pop it into that chat area which runs up the side of my screen, so I try to keep my eye on that. It's always fun for me to know where you're here from, so I see Candy, your name is there, but I do not see where you're from. So if you want to say, hi, I'm from Toledo, Ohio, or wherever you're from, that would be great, because it's just always fun for me to see how far people come to do this class. So please put your questions in that chat. I'll try to answer them while we're live, and if I miss it while we're live, I will go back through and answer them for you as a comment or a message later. It's a kid-friendly class. I'm a school teacher by day, and so sometimes my school kids come to this and sometimes their parents do, so we always keep it kid-friendly, and beginners are completely welcome. This will be a video, posted as a video, so it will stay on Facebook for quite some time until I pull it down. So if you miss all of it tonight, maybe you have to leave early or you want to share with a friend later, it will be up as a video for you. And the way you find it is you just go into Facebook, log on to Sacramento Art Classes where you are now, and if you look for the little tab that says Events, when you click on that, it'll show you all the past events that are still there as videos, so you can watch tonight's or any of the other ones that are up and see what else I have for you. And they're all free, so go ahead and give them a try or share with your friends. Let's see here. The next one of these is going to be on the last Tuesday of October, which will be October 26th from 6:30 to 8, so the same time as this, except for it'll be dark outside then. And we're going to be doing a Dia de los Muertos painting. I haven't picked it yet, but that's our theme. So watch for that just in time for Halloween and Day of the Dead. Also, I teach classes on a month-long basis. So on Wednesday nights, I teach watercolor classes, and on Thursdays, I teach acrylic classes, and those are on Zoom. And I have already posted the new October classes. I just posted them tonight. So if you go to sacramentoartclasses.com, you can click on the art classes tab, and you can see the dates and the prices for those. Those are both on Zoom, and they're 90 minutes a week for 4 weeks. We are going to be painting an old, abandoned, old-time truck and farmhouse in watercolors, and for acrylics, we are going to be painting some plums hanging from a branch. It's beautiful. They're both beautiful, so hopefully you'll want to join me, but check those out. The photos are up online too. Okay, I think that's it. I'm seeing some people coming in. Hi, Cindy from Houston. Hi, Allison. Yay. Hi, Linda. So welcome to class. Let me switch my camera up and we'll jump right into this painting. And again, if you have a question, you can put it in that chat and I'll try to watch for that and answer live. So I'm going to get pretty close to you for a second here while I change up the view. And let's move the camera down onto the desk again. There we go. Don't get nervous because you see that thing that says virtual tip jar. This is a free class. That sign is just there because sometimes people like to leave a tip, but it is not required at all, not expected. So you're here for free. So enjoy yourself on that. And let me do a little rearranging while I talk to you about tonight. So the paper that I'm working on tonight is going to be 140-pound Arches cold pressed watercolor, and I use a block like this. This is called a watercolor block, and it's basically a pad of paper, and it's sealed around the edges, so you can really only access one sheet at a time. But I like these because they're already kind of stretched and they're just nice to work on. You can see that I've taped off the edges. That's not necessary, it's just something that I like to do. I forgot to do it on this one, so this one is not taped off. But the reason that I do that is in case I get something that I like and I want to frame it, taping off the edges gives me room for a mat to, you know, grab onto the edge of the paper without covering up part of my image. So here a mat would cover up, you know, part of these edges here. So that's the reason why I do that. So that's our paper for tonight. Let me put this up here to the side so I can look at it. The brushes that I'll be using are going to be a smaller detail brush. This one happens to be a number 8 round. It's pretty small. It's like about the size of a nail polish brush, but it has a little better point on it than a nail polish brush. And then I'm using a number 6 round, which looks like this. And I also use something called a Quill Brush. This is a number 3 round quill brush, and it's kind of like sort of similar to maybe a number 10 round. Every brand of brush has different sizes. So here they are, all of them together. I'm going to hold them up closer for you to see. And I can see I need to adjust my camera a little bit, so I will make it closer for you in just a second. Because I'm so high tech here, I have to get on a little tiny chair next to me and stand up on that every time I want to make a change to the camera. The other things that you might need tonight are, you're going to need your water. You may like to have a spray bottle. That would be really handy for tonight. You might like to have a hair dryer or a heat gun. I use a heat gun, and it looks like this. And you can find these at something like Harbor Freight, which we have here in West Sacramento, or you can get them at Home Depot, or Michael's has them. So here's mine, or a hair dryer works fine. So that I'm going to keep up over here. Also, some salt for tonight. This is just a coaster or a little dish filled with kosher salt is what I'm using, but you can use table salt. You can use rock salt, sea salt. So I like the more coarse salts like sea salt or kosher because they kind of make a more interesting design. So it's not necessary, but if you want to have that handy, that would be great. Here's my water. And then your paints will be any collection or any selection of colors that you like. But before you choose, let me explain a little something to you, and I want to enlarge this. So let me get up on my stool and make this a little bit closer for you. I have a color wheel here, and you can use whatever colors you want in tonight's painting. You can see that I use warm colors and cool colors. So when I say warm, I'm talking about the reds and oranges and yellows, and then the cool colors are your blue, greens, and purples. When you do use a full palette of colors like this, though, you have to be pretty careful to not let some of them mix together. So I try not to let these warms mix in with the cools, because sometimes you get some funky colors, and unless you're really practiced at doing color mixing, you might accidentally get something that you don't want. So the reason that I have this color wheel is to talk to you about colors on the color wheel that might be good choices. So here are your warm colors on this side, and here are your cool colors over here. So when you think of a cool color, think of like the forest or the ocean, so blues and greens and purples. And when you think of warm, you can think of fire and sunlight, things like that. If you use colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel, like 3 or even 4 colors that are in a row, those are called analogous colors, and they always look good together. So for example, I could use green, blue, and blue violet. And I wouldn't have to care about if they're going to touch or mix together on our painting, because if they do, those colors are all going to mix together beautifully and we won't have any trouble. And you can pretty much start anywhere. So if I wanted to do blue violet, red violet, and red, I'd be safe using those colors. And even if this red and this blue touched each other and mixed, it would look pretty good. So if you say limit yourself to 3 or maybe 4 sometimes is a little bit of a stretch, 4 colors or 3 colors in a row, those are analogous colors, and they look great together. If that's too much for you and you're not really into kind of trying to figure that out, just maybe tonight try to keep your colors a little bit separated by dry paper, or dry them in between so that they don't blend and bleed together. It'll make more sense as I get started here, but that's my little speech on that for so far. So tonight I'm going to use analogous colors, and I have always been a fan of the colors that are kind of along the cool side. So I have, you know, my greens are here, blues, and over here into even some of the purples or kind of reddish purples. So I'm thinking I'm going to be using some probably green and turquoise and blue tonight, and probably a little purple in there. So when you decide what colors you want, it might be smart for you to mist them with a little bit of water ahead of time, because what that does is it kind of gets them primed, gets them juiced up and ready to go, so that when you're ready to paint, you can just dip right in and they're ready. They're not straight out of the tube where they're too gooey, and they're not dry where you're kind of working it for a while and you can't just jump right in and paint like you want to. So those are the colors. I chose Windsor Violet, Peacock Blue, Phthalo Turquoise, and Bamboo Green. Now, knowing me, I'll probably throw in something last minute, like I might throw in one of these Purple Madder or Bright Violet. Bright Violet's a pretty cool color, so now that I said that, I may miss that also. So I'll tell you as I dip in, I'll let you know what each one of these is in case you're trying to replicate something that I'm doing. But those are primed and ready to go. So I'll set this aside and bring you back to, whoops. Well, there's something that just happened to me. I'm glad it happened to me and not you. The bottom of my palette must be a little bit dirty. So I got a little bit of dirt here on my, or maybe paint on my paper. I'm not going to worry about it because it'll probably get covered. It's not going to erase away. I just thought I'd give it a try. But that's what these are. So those little marks are just some dirty paint that was on the bottom of my palette. Okay, I want to zoom us in just a little bit more, so I'm really looking very closely along on this paper. And it'll take a second for my camera to adjust. My monitor that I'm watching this with, my computer monitor, is actually a little bit lags behind. There's about a 10-second delay from what's actually happening live until I can see it. So every once in a while, if you're new to me, you might notice that I accidentally sometimes maybe paint off camera. Maybe I move this and I'm painting up here and it gets out of your sight for a second. So I try to really watch that, and I will make sure to keep my eye on that in case that happens, so that I can make sure that you can see. Okay, the only other thing that you're going to need tonight maybe is a collection of pens. And so I like, you can get a Sharpie pen, and you can use the regular thicker side of the Sharpie. It's actually called fine, even though it's not a fine tip. And some Sharpies even have this ultra fine end on it. So a Sharpie would be great. You can use a pen that is a micron pen, and I have a number 05 and 08, so they're pretty fine point. Micron is a good one because, like Sharpie, they're both permanent and waterproof. So if we were to get wet paint on top of these, they won't move around. So, but we'll use these at the end tonight. And also white pens. Sometimes these Jelly Roll pens are great, but apparently mine is a little bit run out, so I'm not going to be using it tonight, but I at least wanted you to see a Jelly Roll pen in white. Those can be really fun to use. Since mine isn't working, I'm using a Sharpie Paint Pen. They come in water-based and oil-based, and I'm using the water-based one. If you get these, though, they have a ball inside. So you have to shake it up ahead of time, and the tip depresses, so you want to have a scratch piece of paper somewhere and you press the tip in to get the paint flowing if it's the first time you've ever used them. But don't depress the tip on your actual paper, because sometimes a puddle comes out, and maybe that'll happen to me tonight. You never know, but you don't want a puddle to wreck your wonderful painting. Okay, that was a lot of chatter, so I hope that all made sense. Marsha, welcome. Hello. I'm glad you got on. I see that you were frozen. And hi, Marianne from Monterey. I'm going to Monterey in a few weeks. So you're lucky you're there now. Okay, so here is our plan. This is a very free form abstract painting. It's kind of a floral. It's sort of, it almost reminds me of some of the designs that you see on those bandanas when we have all this black and white pen work on it. And all this pen work will be at the very end tonight, and your painting has to be all the way dry, so that's why having a hairdryer or a heat gun would be a great idea. But what I'm going to have you do is, without even drawing, notice how there was no sketch for tonight. It's not just because I was behind for the month, which I was, but I want this to be free form. I want it to be in a way where color just happens and you get a chance to, we're focusing on mixing colors tonight and layering colors. So don't worry about drawing anything ahead of time. I know that's hard to do, but let's give it a try. So I'll set this off to the side, and I'll be bringing that back throughout the night for you to look at. You can do your paper in any direction that you want, horizontally or vertically. But what I'm going to suggest is this. While I'm talking to you, I'm going to mist along the center a little bit. I'm trying to get, I want a gentle dampness on this paper. I don't want it soaking wet. I don't want a puddle, but I want a little bit of dampness because I want some of the paint to flow outside of the area where I'm trying to paint it. That sounds weird, but I kind of know where I want things to fall, and I want a looseness to it. I want a bleed in the paint. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a mist there. I'll just do 2 more shots of that. And it's just very damp. So if I were to just splatter paint on here, it would kind of crinkle out and blend out into the paper just a little bit. So before I talk too long and this dries up, now I'm going to identify some areas where I would like to have some larger blooms. So maybe something like this or some of these larger ones. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to hold my spray mister a little bit closer, and I'm going to do a mist, like a couple shots somewhere where I want a flower. Let's do a third because I want it a little bit bigger. I know you can't see that, but in a second you will. So with whatever color you're choosing, I'm going to use bamboo green. I'm loading up my largest brush with some bamboo green, and I'm just going to touch that on. And you can see that while it is wet like that, let me put my brush down, it will swim, the paint will swim around inside of that little bloom or that circular blossom that I sprayed on here. It's not perfectly round, but that's okay because we want this to be interesting and different. And that's all I'm going to do. It's still going to travel and push outward. It's going to swim out into that whole rest of that puddle that I've made. But for now, that's all I really want to have happen. I'm going to let it do its own thing for a while. And then I'm going to get myself a second one. I'm concentrating on having kind of a, let's call a horizon line maybe along the center with blooms up above and up below and down below. So here I painted this one horizontally, and you can't really see a center line, but I'm kind of trying to keep my eye on that center. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it will in a second. Okay, so here comes my second blossom. I'm going to go about right here. And I want that one a little bit bigger, so I did more mists on that one. And for this one, I'm going to choose one of my other colors. Remember we talked about using analogous colors, colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So this color is phthalo turquoise. And with my brush, I'm just going to touch in some of that. And then I'm letting it do its own thing. I'm not manipulating it with the brush. I will probably tip my paper just a little bit because that will help you see how far out that wet circle there goes. So again, this doesn't look like much of anything yet, but that is just fine. Trust me, it will as we go along. Okay. Now let's do a third one. I'm still thinking about having kind of a midline. So here comes somebody right here. And that one is, let's see, what color do I want that? How about I'll use some Winsor Violet on that one. I love Winsor Violet. It is a very intense color. So you can see how fast some of these paints, depending on their makeup, travel faster. Did you notice how fast that swam around into the wet circle there? And I'm just kind of rocking my paper a little bit. I have to be careful because it's pretty drippy and it can drip outside of my circle. Remember how we misted the whole paper first? That's going to allow some of the paint to flow outside of those circles as well. Okay, so we have 3 of those on there. Let's do a few more and choose whatever colors you want. I'm going to give myself another guy right here. And maybe I'll go back to the green on this one. And let me give myself another one up here. How about a couple of them? What happens if some of them touch together? Let's find out. So here I'm going to put a little bit of that turquoise, and if that turquoise and the purple, run into each other, it's all right because they're analogous. They're next to each other on the color wheel and they will blend nicely. All right, so let's do a fourth one. Remember how I had that accidental place right here where I have some dirt happening? I'm going to spray right here. And let's get another guy going right there. Let's see, how about another purple? How are we all doing? Everybody okay? I'm working a little bit fast right now on this, I know, and so you probably don't have time to ask questions or give a comment, but I don't want you to feel like, she's going too fast and I'm going crazy. If you are, if you're feeling that way, know that in a second I'm going to slow down here. I'm just trying to establish some of these larger blooms ahead of time. And let's get another guy down here close. How about right here? Since I already have purple on my brush, I'm going to use purple there. Okay, and I'm going to stop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do one more. I like odd numbers, so I'm going to do one more. How about if it is, where do I want to go? Oops. How about right here? How about, where do I want to go? Right here, right here. I'll go with another green guy there. Okay. So, I'm just going to kind of tip my paper a little bit. I'm kind of going in circles as I tip it because I'm really trying to fill up those areas of bloom. You can see that these two are running together and it's totally fine. And even over here, these two are running together and it's completely fine because by the time we get done, if you look back at the one I did before, there are so many things going on in here that it really doesn't matter that they're running together. If, however, you have a color that runs together and you don't like the color, you could have a little Kleenex handy and you could do a little, like, I don't even really blot. It's more like if I take the Kleenex, I can just touch it down into a puddle and it vacuums up a great deal of the paint that's in that puddle. I don't really want to do that because I like all this paint, but I just wanted to show you that that's what you can do if you get something that's like an ugly color mix and you don't care for it. So while you're catching up to me, I'm going to scroll back through the comments and see if anybody asked me a question back at the beginning that I didn't see. So, hi Candy, thanks for inviting your Washington friends. Candy from Ann Arbor. Hi Vivian, hi Linda. Hi again Allison. Hi Cindy, hi Bama, how are you? Hi Marcia. And Marianne, I already said hi to you, but hello again. Okay, so we're doing good, I think. While you're putting your blossoms on, let me show you something else that you can do. Watch me first and then decide if you even want to do it. You may not want to, but I think it looks kind of interesting. So I'm going to put this cloth, this towel on my table because I'm about to make a mess. But what you can do, because you probably have a lot of drips happening, is you can tip on purpose and make some runs that go off the page like that. You can even have it go off the page the other way too if you want. So all I'm doing is tipping, and if it doesn't drip for you, you can just give it a little tap on the table and you can get some runs happening. You might like the way that looks. The other thing you can do is you can get, remember how I kept talking about having a midline right here? You could do runs this way. And then that will give you that horizontal line. So if you were just watching and not doing it, if you were just watching me, this gives you a chance to see, do I want up and down runs or do I want crossways runs? I want some more crossways ones, so I'm gonna tip again this way and give it a little tap. I'm running out of drips because I did quite a lot here. And so anyway, the purpose of this was for the paint to get captured on this towel and not go all over the place on my table. So if you like that effect and you want more of it, You could decide, I'm going to decide on this horizontal direction, and I'm going to tip my paper a little bit and just pick up some paint with a brush and just touch it on and let it run. How about if I go here and just give myself a couple of on-purpose runs. So I'm just putting a heavy drip onto the canvas, then I'm just going to tap it down that direction. I'm switching to this way, same thing. I can come over here. Let's see if I want to maybe manufacture one in here. I can put a little paint right here, create a nice drip, and then tap it. Whoops, let's help it out a little bit. Let it come down this way. You can have a little extra drip of water on there, help yourself out. And there we go. So this is still the very beginning of the painting. It's going to change quite a lot, and I'm considering this part here to be more of a background or a base. So if you did something that you don't like, don't worry about it too much, because we're still in stage 1 here and we have a long way to go, and this is still kind of thinking of it as background or an underpainting. So while you're catching up, I'm going to turn on my heat gun and dry this out a little bit. If you're already caught up, this would be a good time for you to dry yours. And again, if you missed that part at the beginning, you could use a heat gun for this, or you could use a hair dryer. Hair dryer is nice because sometimes that'll even blow and push these drips around for you. So you're going to hear a little bit of noise for a minute while I do this, but this is your chance to take a little breather while I dry this out. Okay, now I could have dried that quite a lot more, but I wanted to leave it at least damp. So if you're thinking you have to get it all the way dry, don't worry about it, because as long as when it's still damp like this, we can get some interesting effects. If you've already dried it all the way, that's okay too, but I'm just letting you know that you can go either direction. So I'm going to pause here for a minute and wait to see if I get a few thumbs up or smiley faces that people are maybe ready to go on before I do anything else. I don't want you to feel really rushed on this. So if you thumbs up me, I'll know when we can go forward. Okay, cool. I see a lot of happy faces and hearts and things. I do see one angry or frustrated face. Maybe that's somebody who doesn't like what's happening, but hang in there. Trust the process. It will be okay as we go along, okay? So I'm sorry if you are frustrated, but just hang in there a little bit and we'll get some more things going with this. Okay, so let's take a look back again at this one that I did before. Hold on one second. My dog is right here and he wants to go outside. Okay, there you go. Okay, so here's the one from before. Can you see how some of these blossoms have multiple colors in them? So specifically this one right here, it's got some nice yellow in the middle, and that blended to make this orange. So this was a red and a yellow flower, but then it blended and made orange. Or maybe here there's a couple different colors. Most of these I tried to play with different colors. So that's what we're going to start doing now, is we're going to add other colors into these areas that are probably still damp. I know that mine are. And if you didn't dry yours for very long, yours will be too. So what I'm going to say is, if I look at mine, I know that if I were to use some yellow on here, I might like to keep it out of these areas of color, just because I'm not totally sure. I know how it'll mix, but you may not be totally sure how it'll mix. Yellow mixed in with purple gives a funky color, sometimes gray brown, you know, but yellow and green or yellow and blue would be okay. So I'm going to keep most of my yellow, if I use any, away from that, but I know that I can be okay with it in some of these green and blue areas. So the yellow that I'm going to choose tonight is this pretty color called Hansa Yellow Light. It's a very sunny, like a daffodil yellow. So I'm going to mist that and give myself a little bit of that. You might have something called primary yellow or lemon yellow, or you may not even know what it is. It might just be yellow. So that's just what mine is. So I'm going to kind of pre-mix a little bit of that, juice it up and get it primed. And then earlier I mentioned to you that I may also go a little rogue and use some of this color here called Bright Violet. So these are two colors that I'm going to introduce just for fun. Remember, this is an abstract, so there's no right or wrong, and we are just having some fun. So our next step here is going to be to try and mix and merge some colors. I want to zoom in for you a little bit so that you can see this a little bit easier. So here we go. There we go. On my brush is Bright Violet. So what if I wanted the center of this flower right here to have a little more violet in it? I could put it on there, kind of just touching it on, just kind of giving myself a center to that flower. I could, now that it's on there, I can mist it with some water and it'll start to flow and swim around. And it probably will not go out into this white. It's going to stay in the areas that are already damp. So I'm just going to maybe tip my brush a little, or my pad a little bit, and move that around. But the other thing that I can do, besides putting it in the center and spraying into it, is I can create an interesting edge around some of these. So I can try and follow sort of the edge on some of them. Maybe I'll skip a little section, see how like my brush is skipping every once in a while. So I'm kind of identifying the shape of that flower by outlining it. And then before that dries, I'm going to rinse my brush and blot it on a paper towel a little bit, so it's just a little bit damp. And then I can take the brush and just touch into that paint that I've just put on and kind of pull it into the middle a little bit. See how I'm almost like picking up what's there just with my damp brush and kind of pulling it into the middle. It creates a ruffly texture that's interesting for flowers, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see better. It's very loose, not planned out, but basically what it looks like is it's almost like a morning glory or something. It's got a darker edge around it, and then as I pulled that into the middle still stayed that blue color. But that's another thing that you can do and have fun with the paints. So this one was we dropped it on and we sprayed it. This one was we edged it, and then with a damp brush we pulled inward. But what if we wanted to do something completely different that we haven't tried yet? So let's create a new bloom using that same bright violet color that I just was using, or whatever color you're going to use. It would be best if you use something on the darker range. So don't use yellow on this, but maybe a purple or a blue or a green or even a red. I'm going to put one right here, and just all I'm doing this time with my brush, I'm making a flowery shape. It's just a circular shape. It's kind of irregular. And then with the brush, I'm going to touch on that same color called Bright Violet. This is the brand of this one is Holbein Paints. And so here is a shape of a flower, right? And I can tip my paper, have that swim around. But here's where your salt comes in. It's pretty wet right now. I have a pretty solid puddle there. It may be a little bit too wet for me to get this to work, but I want to show you what I'm going to do with the salt. You just take a little pinch of it and you can sprinkle it into the flower, into that wet area. And what it does is the salt draws the paint towards itself. And it was a little bit too wet, so the effect is not going to be as nice as it could be. So I'm going to do a second one to show you, but you can see maybe that the salt attracted the paint to it. Let me sprinkle a little more. And it's going to leave an interesting, almost like a sparkly effect to it. Not like glitter, but sparkles of light after it dries. So I'm going to let that one be, and I'm going to show you another one and maybe do a little bit better job of it. So here we go again. Let's say I'll go right here. I'm going to give myself another just area of water. I'm blotting my brush here, and it was a little bit too wet for me. Let's use a Kleenex. I'm just going to blot just a little bit. So I have a damp area, and here comes the paint. Again, that same bright violet color. Tapping that in. I don't have to really try with the brush. I'm just tapping it, and so the paint will swim on its own into all of the areas of that wet patch. And then I'm using my paper, I'm circling my paper around just to make sure. And now I'm going to just let it sit for a second. I don't want it to dry enough that it gets dull, so it'll still be damp but dull. I still want to have a shine on this new wet flower, but I don't want to have, like up here, you can really see there's almost a lake or a puddle. So if I kind of try to catch the light reflection here for you, maybe you'll be able to see the difference in the amount of liquid or water that's on the paper. So this one is really swimming around. You can see the paint rocking back and forth, but here there isn't as much paint, so I think I'm going to have a better effect there. When you use salt, you want to have a shine, but you don't want to have a big puddle or a lake. So I'm going to pinch some salt again, sprinkle that on there just a little bit, and then leave it. Let's go a little bit closer. So you can see on this one, I did get a better effect. You can see the little salt grains. What happens when you have too much water on there is that it dissolves. So here's the other puddle that was too wet up here, and it really has dissolved the salt. You can't see the grains in it, but this second one that I did is better. So this will give me a better effect, and you want to just leave that alone. Don't do anything else to it until it's all the way dry. And when it is, we'll brush away that salt, and you'll have an interesting effect on there. You can do that on any one of these. If I wanted, I could sprinkle in on here. As long as it's still got a slight shine to it, it will work. If the paper's already dull and not shiny, salt doesn't work. Okay, Janice, you said you missed the start of this class. Is that maybe what you mean? It's going to be it's recorded, so after the class is over, it'll be as a recording on Facebook indefinitely, so I'll leave it up for several months for you to take a look at. So you could catch the beginning if you missed it. Okay, so let's do some more things. So we did this one where we dropped in water. Did we spray it first? We got it a little wet first, I can't remember. We just dropped in paint. This one we outlined our flower, and then with a clean damp brush we pulled that paint inwards a little bit, and then these two were where we dropped on salt. And by the way, since this first one is starting to dry up a little bit, I might put a little more salt on and see if I can get it to work for us. It's probably going to still be a little too wet, but oh, I put a lot of salt on, so maybe something will happen. Anyway, so you can always figure out a way to make things work. Okay, so now let's do some things down in here. I like this quite a lot, so I'm going to do another one of these, and I will put that one here. I'll do some of this one. So again, we just outlined it. This is still a little damp, so if it works nicely on something that's damp, but if it's already dry, that's okay. We can still get this to work. So I'm just using my brush to edge, and it's okay to skip here and there, skip sections. Makes it more interesting if it's not just all outlined, and maybe there's some like crinkling or wiggling to my brushwork here. And I'm rinsing it and blotting it, so it's going to be damp, but it's not dripping wet. I'm blotting it on a towel and then using my brush to just pull inwards. And this is kind of, it creates an interesting texture, but it also blends that paint too. And if you don't like it to be like mine has a little bit of a streaking action, I kind of like that. But if you don't want that, you can get a real smooth look by just rinsing and blotting your brush again and then continuing to pull it inward, and you're almost like mopping the floor or cleaning it up a little bit if you don't want to have that streakiness. I kind of like the streakiness, but I want to show you what you can do if it bugs you. Okay, and so there we have another flower identified. I think my goal on this type of painting is to get a lot of variety in the different things that are happening in these different flowers. So let's do a few more things. Your choice, what you want to do. Maybe these two green guys here are a little boring to me, so I might take some of my phthalo turquoise and I'll do an edge around this one. And see how I'm breaking it up? I'm not edging everything, and I got a little messy there on purpose. Rinse the brush, blot it so it's damp but not dripping on your paper towel, and then use that same brush to pull inwards. And you can have the streaks or not, depending on what you like. So this one, I think I'll leave it a little streaky. Sometimes you have to rinse and blot your brush again because it picks up a lot of paint here. And so I rinsed again. So here's that guy. Starting to, some of them look a little bit like flowers, right? And what am I going to do with this one? I'm going to take a little Winsor Violet here. And on this one, we're going to do something that we, sort of similar to this, where I'm just going to touch on some violet. Basically, I'm just painting it on in one area. Rinse out my brush, blot it, and then just, I'm going to blend it gently, not necessarily over that whole entire flower, but just make the flower more than one color, or the blossom, whatever it is. And I'm rinsing a lot in between because Winsor Violet is a pretty strong color, so it's really filled up quite a lot. So you can see what happened here. I have the lower part of the flower has more purple and the upper part has more green. This is something that you can do all along the way, is continue to add to the flowers. What I mean is I just added purple on there, but now what if I want the edge to have a little more blue? I'm going to tip my paper a little bit and just rim this with a little peacock blue. I talked about using it, but I haven't put it on yet. So I'm going to put a little peacock blue around the edge of that guy, and if I leave this on a slight slant, so maybe I'll put a pen or something underneath here, so my paper has a little tip to it. Gravity's going to pull this paint down this way, so I'm going to have a darker rim around the bottom. It's an interesting effect. So again, we're trying to have a lot of different things happening with each of these blooms. Okay, so let me pause and let you have a chance to do a few things. I'll watch for some thumbs up, and then we'll go on. I want to show you this again. This may give you some ideas. So here's the pre-painted one. You notice that I painted all the in-between area. So I had all those blossoms, but I also painted in the background, and I did that at the very end. It's going to be up to you whether you want to have that or not. You won't maybe even know yet if you want it until the end. So this just gives you an idea of what it looks like to have some type of a background. Is sea salt or table salt better for this effect? I prefer sea salt or kosher salt. I think table salt is pretty small, and it's nice to have a coarser grind to the salt. I think that that looks better. So while you're working, I want to remind you the next free class that we're going to have is going to be on October 26th, the last Tuesday in October, and it's again at 6:30, just like this, 6:30 to 8. And we're going to do something that is Dia de los Muertos. So I have not posted a picture yet, but it'll be something fun and whimsical just in time for Halloween and Dia de los Muertos. So that's that one. And then next week I have 2 new classes starting. New watercolor class starts on Wednesday nights at 5:30 to 7. Beginning watercolors. And that one is going to be, it's a old-time truck abandoned in a field in front of an old abandoned farmhouse. So that'll be interesting. There's a picture up online, and you can sign up at sacramentoartclasses.com. That's the Wednesday night. And then on Thursday nights, I'm doing an acrylic class, also for beginners, and that one is 5 until 6:30, and each of these is 1 month long, so 4 weeks, and it's 90 minutes each night, and they're on Zoom. These are Zoom classes. And that one is going to be a branch with plums on it. So it's really pretty. kind of a harvest plum, more end of summer type of fruit thing. So those will be up, well, they are up in case you're interested in those. And I also want to remember to tell people that if you go on the website, sacramentoartclasses.com, you can sign up and get a newsletter there. Just click the newsletter tab up at the top, and I only send them out once a month, but it'll tell you the new classes. I'll be sending it this weekend, or it'll tell you about these Facebook ones or kind of just other things that are going on. So that's there if you're interested. Okay, so I'm looking for any thumbs up or happy faces or anything like that to let me know that you're ready. And I'm going to show you a few more things with this, but I want to wait and make sure you're doing okay. Okay, there we go. Thanks. Another frustrated face. Linda is happy though. Thank you, Linda. Okay, so let's see here. So now let's add some other new flowers that we haven't got yet. I'll probably come back and do something with these that still are just in their first layer, but I want to do a couple fun new ones too. I'm leaving my paper on an incline, so you can't tell, but I have something propped underneath it so that it's tipped just slightly up, so that this paint will gather down here and give me some darkness down in that area. Okay, so let's see here. I am feeling like I want to kind of go some more with this bright violet. There's also another beautiful color called rose violet. See how I do? I tell you to stay with analogous colors, and then I'm like adding new other colors in. So if you feel like that and you want to have the rainbow of flowers, go right ahead. That's completely fine. Okay, so one fun thing to do is to give yourself, you've got these bold main guys, you have some kind of shadowy guys that don't have much happening, but you can also do some little accent ones. So this is a very vivid color, and maybe here and there I just want to do with this brush, or you can use a smaller detail brush if it feels better, but I just want to give myself a couple of little small little bitty guys, and all I'm doing is making like a wiggly irregular circle, and I'm leaving it plain white in the middle for now. So I'm going to do a couple of these here and there. Let's think about them being slightly different shapes and sizes. They don't all need to be exactly the same size as each other, and we can cluster them. Maybe this one is just a little speck and the other two have a hole in the middle. But they look nice clustered. Think about a flower bouquet that has baby's breath, and this maybe is the baby's breath. And maybe you have a couple spots in the center. These guys have one white spot. This one has kind of like two in the middle. So let's put a few of them here and there. Because of the lighting in the room, they look very dark, but they are a magenta colored. They're not like super dark, but it's kind of the lighting. I don't know. I have to really figure out something a little bit better for you guys, but this is what I have for now. So I'm just going to continue adding a few different things here and have some fun with this. If you're unsure, less is more. Just do a few, because you can always add more later. And it's okay, like right here, I'm going to let this one overlap with the big flower. Let it overlap on stuff, because not everything has to just be separate and standalone. Okay, let's do a guy, a rogue random guy way over here, and a little buddy that's close by, and one up here, and maybe another one here kind of overlapping. I'll do two of those together. Okay, so we're just jazzing it up a little bit. We're just doing a few things to add some spice to it. And I do like this one and this one and this one being shadowy, not a lot happening, but I want a little something more from these two. So this guy, remember I added that purple in the middle, but I want something even more beyond that, a little more exciting. So it's still damp on my paper, and if yours is dry already, it's okay, but I'm going to encircle it again. This is phthalo turquoise, so I'm going to do that kind of where we pulled in, where we did this, we put a ring around it and we pulled in. I'm going to do that on here. I'm inviting you to use your intuition on this. So if you feel like, oh, mine doesn't need that, but it needs a drop in the center, do that. Just dress them up a little bit. This is where you're adding, you know, the jewelry onto the outfit. So, and I did like a second layer. Here's a, kind of comes around. Let's do a thing like that. Okay, and so then remember, I rinse the brush, I blot it on a paper towel. Karen, I'm reading your text. You said it's Tuesday is difficult for you to join live, but you're enjoying it. Well, I'm glad that you're here. And remember, if you can't do this on Tuesday, they're recorded. So this will be up as a recording and you can do it whenever, even on the weekend. And I'm going to leave it up for a few months. I've been pulling down the old ones and I'm going to remake them on YouTube, and actually they'll be there, but I'm going to charge a small fee. I had them up free for about almost a year. And I think I'm going to ask for like maybe a $5 or $10 on that. I haven't decided yet. It's hard to find time to do everything, but they will. So people that were looking for the peacock or some of the early ones like the mushrooms that maybe aren't up anymore, they will make a new appearance down the road as a YouTube video. So if there's something you're looking for, you can send me an email to request it. Maybe I can get to that one first if somebody really wants to see that one, or whichever one it is. Okay, so now I've got a little more focus on this. So here, these outer ones are softer focus. As they're in here more, they're more in focus. I'm going to leave this one soft, but I want to give something else to this guy right here. So I want to go back into that green. I haven't used the green in a while. And I like that edging that I was doing, so I think, whoops, big drip. So I think I'm going to do another edge there. And how about for fun if I switch my color halfway around? So it was green and now I'm going to switch to this bright violet. So no reason why you can't do that as long as you feel like it's a good color mix. It won't mix into something weird. You can change up your edge of your flower. So here I've rinsed and now I'm going to pull that green in a little bit. Rinse my brush and blot again. Pull in this purpley, which again is called bright violet. And that green is called bamboo green. One other thing to tell you, if you live in Sacramento or the area, I was asked to be in an art show. The entire month of October, I'm going to be in this gallery called E Street Gallery in downtown Sacramento. It's at 12th and E. And so I'll be posting some stuff on social media, probably Facebook and maybe even in my newsletter about that. But the second Saturday in Sacramento is when the galleries have kind of their opening events. So next Saturday, a week from this Saturday, will be the opening there. But the show's open the entire month. So I'm going to have 10 paintings there. I'm excited about that. And hopefully you can come and check it out. But I'll also, I'll try to post stuff. So here I was having fun while I was talking and I created a middle for this guy. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Thank you, Miriam. Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't been in a gallery in a long time. So that'll be fun. Okay, let me see here. Let's look at the time. It's 7:24. We have about half an hour left in class tonight, which is fine. So I'm going to pause here while you're catching up and playing around and decide on what steps we're going to do next. I'm so excited to see you post these. I want to tell you that if you want to share your finished work with some of the rest of the world, I have a Facebook group that is called Sacramento Art Classes Students. So if you go on Facebook and you just search that, Sacramento Art Classes Students, you can ask to join the group, and of course I will approve you. And then if you want, you can share your finished paintings from our class or just anything else you've painted. But it doesn't go out to the whole world. It only goes out to people who are in the group. So sometimes people don't want everybody to see their stuff, but they enjoy having comments from other students. And you will get so much support and praise because it's a really nice, you know, supportive group. We're all learning and sharing our work. So I would encourage you, if you want to share your work there. And if you want, I will give you constructive criticism, but I will at least like it and give you a comment. So you can always put your stuff there, because I have no idea what colors you guys are using. Maybe somebody else is doing, here's the picture of our sample again. Maybe you're doing warm and cool, like a full palette color setup, or maybe you're doing all warms. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what everybody has. Okay, so I'm not going to paint yet. I'm going to talk for a second. No, I changed my mind. I'm going to dry this, and then I'm going to talk for a second. So you guys carry on. If you are at a good place that you're done for now, go ahead and dry it while I'm drying mine. But if you're still painting, still paint. Keep painting. So here we go. Okay, it's not all the way dry, but as I was painting, I noticed that I need there to be, we have two guys with salt here, these two. We need a third salt because I don't like to just have two of something. I want it to look intentional. So I'm going to give us another half a flower up there in the corner. I'm going to pop some green on that one. This is bamboo green, also a Holbein color. And rock the paper to just kind of get it to swim all around in whatever that wet area is there. Let's make it a little bigger. And then pinch of salt. There we go, and that's it. If you put a ton of salt on there, like you're trying to absorb all the water and you put a ton of salt, you lose some of the interest to it. So just a little sprinkle is nice. And then later when it's all dry, I'll brush away the salt from these two. This one right here does not thrill me. So if you have somebody that doesn't thrill you, I don't mean in real life, I'm talking about flowers, you can take a brush, a clean damp brush, and you can kind of paint a little water on, blot with a Kleenex, and you can lift out some of the color. It's just kind of, nothing's really going on here. So I want to change that up somehow. But for now, I'm just going to do it by lightening this up a little bit. This is called doing a lift. The colors that I'm using are pretty staining, so I'm not going to get a huge lift. I'm not going to be able to erase this paint all the way back to zero to just white paper, but I want to change it up a little bit from what it was. So I'll come back to that in a minute, but it was just dull. So, okay, so how we doing? Michael Kraus is watching from the Ozarks. Welcome, Michael. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so I'm going to keep going back to that thing that I was saying about having a horizontal. Just, I think it looks nice to, I don't know, it just grounds the painting a little bit. So what I want to do then is I want to give myself a few more intentional streaks of color going in that direction. Previously we dripped and then we went like this and we tapped it and we got the paint to drip down, but this time I'm going to be a little bit more intentional about it. So I'm going to use a slightly smaller brush. This is the number 6 round, and you can go with any color that you like. I'm going to get some phthalo turquoise And I have a guy coming through here, right? And follow the color as I go. So turquoise, turquoise, turquoise. Then our eye goes right to here in this turquoise. Then we have some more down here. And then your eye comes back up over in this direction. So from here, I might want to have our eye go across the middle of this background guy and give me something over that way. Just maybe sort of like a wiggly broken line. If it bugs you and it's too bold, take your mister, give it a couple of mists, and already you can see it's blurring out. Here it is a little closer to the camera. You can even tip it to the side, but you're just kind of, you still have a gestural line that goes out to the side, but you're blurring it a little bit. And so if you want, you can keep that tipped and have things run that direction. So that was what I was planning to have happen, is to carry our eye across the page using this same color. So here we come again. So from here, I got this turquoise, maybe my eye goes this way, but now what if I want the eye to come up here? I can darken this guy maybe and kind of follow around that edge a little bit. Maybe something like that. Just playing. Okay, so then my eye might come around here. Maybe I want something like that. And since I blurred this side, how about if I do a little mist and blur some of this stuff here? And since I'm holding it in this direction, what if I were to let a few more drips come down this way? And you can just give it a mist. So this is a different way of thinking. Normally we have a big plan and we have a sketch and we know what we're doing, but this time we're inventing it as we go along. And so it's easy to become frustrated with that because it's unfamiliar, and you might think like, what am I making though? What is this? Or I'm so frustrated, or I don't know what this is supposed to be. But maybe you can just think of this as a letting go exercise. We have so much crazy stuff happening in the world. Maybe this can be meditative for you, or just relaxing, and you don't have to care about the outcome. You're just watching, how do these colors mix? And did I layer colors in a way that was fun for me? I mean, is it feeling good? Is there anything that I don't like? Is there something that bugs me? All these questions you can look at. Maybe this right here is too streaky and you want to take your brush and blur it out a little bit. You can do that. If you need to have a center on a flower, it's nothing happening in the middle, tap in a center if you want. But remember, we've got all this pen work to do still. So let's not leave too little time. We need to leave enough time to make sure that we can do some pen work. So for now, I'm going to be okay with this. I know it's okay because I'm looking at, like, okay, I have 3 that have salt on it. I have some that have that pull in with the color. I have a few drips coming up and down, but mostly I have this horizontal drip. Maybe I like it better this way. You look at your painting in different directions. I still do not care for this one at all. So something might have to happen with that. The easiest way for me to fix it is like this. Let's see, I'm going to go back to this color that I used for these little bitty guys. And how about if we just pop something over the top of this and try to disguise it a little bit? Maybe there's another guy down here. Something like that. Just a little disguise. Make it look like you meant to do it, but a little bit of disguise or something. So that's a way that you can kind of fix things or hide things. The other thing that we didn't do on this one yet, and I'm going to not quite do it yet, I don't think, is, do you want to have a background color? If you do, you can put it in right now. It's best to do it before we do any pen work, because some of this white pen in particular, it will move. If it gets wet by being painted over or painted near, it's going to blur. So you want to do that white pen the very last thing of all. So if you decide that you want to have a little background, this might be a good time. So I'll show you a little bit of what you can do. I'm going to use some peacock blue. It's a beautiful kind of a bright blue. And I'm just going to paint away some of, I'm I'm going around the blossoms, not over them, but I'm not being careful. There's some white that still shows. And I'm just kind of filling in some areas. Maybe I would continue some of those horizontal lines with this peacock blue. You can just use a little clear water and blend it in here and there. Soften it. Soften the edges so they kind of blur out as they come away from the middle. So you can be as careful or as loose as you want. If you're not super careful and you're just quick, then you'll have little areas of white maybe showing, and that's okay. Here I'm going to get my brush wet and do a little blend with that. Anytime you want to blend, just get your brush clean water on it, but blot it so it's not soaking wet. And move that paint around a little bit more over here, and then I'm going to dry it up real quick, and we're going to go right into that pen work, okay? So here I'm still putting some of that blue around, rinsing the brush and blotting it so that once I get that blue color on, I'm taking just the damp water brush. Water brush means there's no paint on it, it's just water. And I am blending it outwards. It's like if you're putting makeup on your face, you don't want to have streakiness. You're feathering it or blending it out so that it fades away. And I don't feel called to put this background color on the whole paper. I kind of like having areas of just plain white here and there, but I'll pull it up a little bit. Got to stay away from that green because that's wet. Oh, Karen, you said I just gave a face to a flower that I don't care for. You're right. It's funny that you said that. You're a good noticer, because as I was doing it, I thought, oh boy, I put a little face on there. Or even it could be a ladybug or something. I don't know. But yeah, I was trying to disguise it. Hopefully it doesn't make it stand out more. But, you know, I guess it is what it is. It's funny. Okay, so I'm going to be done with this. If you wanted to, you could pop in something bright like some yellow. What if the centers of these things had little hits of yellow? Or what if you just had little splashes of yellow here and there? When I say splashes, I mean this. I'm using that Hansa yellow light on a large brush that's very wet, and I can come up here and just go tap, tap, tap with the brush. It's almost like sprinkling little flecks of yellow here and there just to brighten it up here and there. I'll hold it closer so you can see, but it looks like this. The yellow is kind of blending a little bit because the paint was damp, or the paper was damp. So the yellow is, some areas it's very precise spots, and others it's more looser kind of flowy spots. So if you like that, you can do that. But you know, if you don't do it. You don't need to go over the edge with this and do too much. I almost liked it better without the yellow, but that's okay because I wanted to show you what you can do to play around with this. So you need to make sure that you don't brush away that salt until everything is all the way dry. It may stick to your paper a little bit where you can kind of use the back of your fingernail to scrape it. So I'm going to take a minute to dry this with my heat gun, and I want to really all the way dry this now. So please dry yours also pretty quick here because we have 20 minutes left of time for the pens. And you need to have dry paper for that. So you're going to hear the noise of my heat gun for a few minutes while I get this all the way dried up. Hey, by the way, while I'm drying it, I'm going to dry this off camera, and I'm going to put our sample back up in case you want to look at this while I'm drying, because it's pretty boring to just watch me heat gun. But maybe looking at this will give you some inspirational ideas as I'm drying this out. So let's put that right here for you to look at. So I'll be back in a second, still drying. Okay, just put this away here and let's move on. Okay, do I have any thumbs up? Are we ready for some pen work? Just a couple people, it looks like. Okay, so let me talk for a minute while you're catching up. You might still be drying and maybe you can't hear me that well. Okay, so once it's all dry, you can take the salt off. And so depending on how much salt you use and what kind you use, you can just probably just rub it away. If you can't, you can use the back side of your fingernail. You want to be a little careful because you don't want to scar your paper. The effects that I got on this were okay. It wasn't the best. Normally what I'm looking for is like a sparkle. Think about like a night sky that has fireworks in it. Sometimes salt gives you that type of effect. And sometimes if you put it on when it's on paper that's too wet, you don't get the effect you want. So if that's what happened, if you didn't get a good effect, it's probably the paper was either too wet or too dry, but it's something that you can at least try again, maybe even on practice paper so that you don't use up a whole piece of good paper if you're a little unsure of that. But now comes the fun part where well, hopefully all of it was fun, but now I've got all these pens to go with. So pen work is where you can bring out really fun, cool things, or you can hide things that you don't like. So an example of bringing out something fun and cool, I really liked the way this one looked. And all I did was kind of add some little roughly broken lines around the edge of that guy. And I kind of gave it the feeling of maybe it's like one of those poppies or something that opens up. Here I used dots to kind of identify the center and maybe some petals. I think I want to look at it this way. These two right here, I did the same type of thing as here where I kind of made little petal shapes and a center. You could have dots and dashes. You could have wavy wiggly lines. You could have like swirls and spirals. Anything goes on this. One thing that is nice to do is all these little small accent ones, the ones like these. If you want to do dots on those, maybe make all of those the same. So for example, these are all just plain dots. There's no other type of mark. It's just little dots. And that unifies those as their own kind of standalone little accent shape. These two, I tried to make them the same by putting flowers on them. I probably should have done the same thing with this one, but sometimes, oops, sorry, I was off camera. Anyway, so I think you get the idea. So get lost in this. This is just doodling and having fun. You can go back and forth between black and white. I really enjoy using the white, so I may start in, let's say I'm going to start on this guy. So I don't know, I'm just going to do like some wiggly lines here. Maybe I'll pull in a few places. It's up to you. Do you know what Zentangle is? Maybe you've seen the books or seen it online. Zentangle, they do kind of a repeating pattern inside of a shape, and it doesn't matter what the shape is. I mean, what the repeating pattern is. You could do checkerboard. So why couldn't you just do a checkerboard on one of these? Or let's say this guy over here, maybe I want to do just lines. You don't have to know how to draw to do this. You don't have to be able to do anything fancy. You're just going to maybe make lines. And then what if the next set of lines goes, I don't know, it's longer maybe. So anything goes on this. Just have some fun. Maybe in the middle you want to have some dots. This is just a Sharpie. The regular Sharpie, they actually call it fine point, but it isn't all that fine. It's kind of more of a thicker, less precise. You could identify some of your edges by outlining. You could give yourself something interesting in the middle. Try not to put too much interest on the guys that are way far out on the edge of the page, because they're your secondary. These guys are your main, so I might want to have, you know, more impact on these middle flowers than on my edge ones. So it's up to you. I would encourage you to, like I said, go back and forth between some of the white and some of the black. And if you're using white, if you're using one of these, shake it up. You can buy these at Michael's. I like the water-based. They also make an oil-based. If you use the water-based and you get it wet, like if you add more paint later, it will run. So it's not permanent. So you have to shake it up, and then maybe on a separate piece of paper, not your actual painting, so I'll do it here on the tape. You can depress it every once in a while and see how it made that whole puddle happen. Well, imagine if you did that on your painting, you would have ruined it. So I always do it on a separate side piece of paper just to get things flowing. So here, what if I did, I don't know, let's try something just funny, silly. It's a lot of fun to just do dots on everything. Don't forget, if you want to share, go on to the Sacramento Art Classes Facebook group. If you're not a member, just request to be one and I will approve you. And then you can share your finished painting with us, because it is quite a lot of fun for me anyway to see what everybody did. I'm really interested to see what colors people are going to do for this. And since we're close to the end here, does anybody have any questions at all? Anything that they want to ask about the colors, or upcoming classes, or something that they missed? This will be it's recorded, it's being recorded, and it will be up on Facebook indefinitely. So usually within 10 minutes of when our class ends, Facebook will just automatically have it posted for you, so you can watch it later or share it with a friend. Let's see here. I'll try to put this one up a little bit too, so if you need any more ideas, you can look at this other one and maybe get some ideas. Here's something that I did on the other one. I just did some funny spiral type of shapes. I'm using a micron 05 and a micron 08. Those are the sizes. 05 and 08 are a little bit bigger than many of them, so they show up more. And you might be a person that's very patient and you want all your circles and things to be perfect. I'm not that patient, so I kind of zing through this pretty quickly, just thinking of it as I'm doodling or something. And you can add more and more and more and more and more. I want to show you a sample that somebody had online who does a lot of these, because it might inspire you with another idea. So it looks like this. I'm on a little bit of a delay, so I don't see it on my monitor yet. Here it goes. Okay, so they've used all these shades of blue, and then they just used white. And they did just a lot of just line work. Isn't that pretty? It's pretty cool. And I don't know, you can maybe even see faces or creatures in there. It could be flowers, it could be undersea. But this is from Pinterest, and it's it's called Paint Your Art Out is the person who made this one. But it was really inspiring, and I think that this may also be alcohol ink. I'm not sure, because there's some really very round and transparent dots here that almost look like it could be alcohol ink, but it may be watercolor. I'm not sure. So just lots of different things to inspire you, so maybe check that out. Look up Zentangle, Zentangle, all one word. And you may find some things there that are appealing to you. Don't be locked into just drawing on your flowers. What if you wanted to draw on the in-betweens? Maybe right here, I want to do this background space. I don't know. I may not like this, but we're just having fun. So how about I try it and see what it looks like? Maybe I'm going to fill in behind this flower. And I think if I do this, I may have to commit to doing quite a lot of the background. So think about it before you do it, because you may not want to commit to doing so much in the background, but it could be very interesting if you did. Or sections of the background. I think that's what I would rather do. I don't want to spend time doing a ton of it, but if I could do a little bit there, maybe I could do some over here. And you can see I'm being quick and sketchy. You can be as precise or imprecise as you want, because it's your abstract painting. And when it's an abstract, it's whatever you want it to be. The blue picture was called Tranquility, and the person who did it is called, it's on Pinterest, and it's called Paint Your Art Out, and she spells it U-R, Paint Your Art Out. And this piece is called Tranquility, so here it is again. I like to give shout out to people so that, you know, I don't want to copy anybody's exact ideas, but there are so many things out there that, you know, inspire other things. So I was inspired by this one, and the one that I actually put up as the post for the Facebook event for this class was also from Pinterest. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of that one or that person. I wish I had written that down so that I could share that with you, but sometimes when you go on Pinterest and you find something, it will lead you to the next thing, and you may end up coming across that on your own. Okay, so we're just about out of time here. Oh, Vivian filled hers in with snakes. I am dying to see that. I hope that you'll share that with us, because that sounds really cool and different. I'd love to see that. You could also use colored pencils for this. You could use, what else could you use? Markers, if you want. Here's this boring flower. Let's see, what can I do to that before we go? Here, I'll do this. I'm going to make it into a flower. Here's a middle. Some little petals coming out. There, much better. So any kind of problem can always be fixed or hidden with these pens. They're kind of fun. This guy needs something. And this guy. And this guy. Here's another one here. Okay, I might be about done on this. This is one of those where I think I want to look at it and decide and think about it for a while before I call it quits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch up the camera for a second so I can say goodbye to you in real life. I always like to sign off with my actual face, and then I'll put it back down here on the desk in case you need to look at this a little bit longer. But thank you so much for being here with me on a Tuesday night. I know that sometimes weeknights are difficult, and also timing is hard because some people might be eating dinner between 6:30 and 8, but we also have people on the East Coast and the Midwest who are with us that have a later time zone, so at least you guys are not out there until super late here with this class. But I appreciate everyone being here. So here comes the switch up. So now you're just looking at the back wall of the studio here, and now here comes my face. Okay, let me back up a little bit. It's extreme close-up. Okay, so thank you. Don't forget, if you want a newsletter, go to sacramentoartclasses.com and you click on newsletter, and I'll send you that out, and it'll let you know about upcoming classes and things. Wednesday nights next week is the new watercolor class. Thursday night is the new acrylics class, and those are both listed on the website under the art classes tab. What else? Next one is October 26th, the last Tuesday in October, and we're doing Dia de los Muertos. So hope to see you then. And thank you for being here. So have a good night. I will leave the camera running for a minute, and I'll put you back on the table so you can look at the samples one last time. So thanks again. Good night. I got to stand on my little chair to move this down for you. And I'll rearrange a few things on the desk so that it is easier for you to see. Let's get these two guys side by side. Maybe I'll go this way. It's so funny how much space, no matter how much space you have on your tabletop, if you're me anyway, I always end up using all the space that I have and feeling like everything is too crowded. But that's what being creative and making art is about, I guess. Okay, so there we go.